Hi，大家好，Hello, welcome
Hey
to Smart
there.
Mandarin. Hello, Caroline.
Hi, Katrina. Thanks for welcoming me back here.
Thanks for coming back again. Thank you so much. And for those who have not seen you before and don't know about you, can you just introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Caroline. 我的中文名字是一梦. It's really fun to be on here speaking English. So I've been learning Chinese for almost 2 years now. And Katrina and I met like a little bit less than a half a year ago.
Mm.
So I've been learning Chinese with her and learning Chinese on my own. I've been told before that my pronunciation is pretty okay. So, Katrina and I today are going to talk about pronunciation and tones. I'm really looking forward to sharing my experience with everybody.
Okay, so I really want to thank you and I really appreciate you coming to this interview because the reason I want to invite you to this interview was because in our Chinese Immersion Hub, I saw you how you like share your tips to help other members in our Chinese Immersion Hub with their pronunciation. I heard your recording. I see your tips and tricks and how you manage to pronounce some sounds and tones. I was so impressed and I was like, oh, I must interview you and pick your brain on those experience. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I can't wait to keep talking about it.
All right. Okay. So we're gonna follow your script, and thank you, by the way, for writing all the script for today's interview.
Well, you know me, I will li ti if I don't have a script. So,
Oh, so let's start with the first question. Can you share a little bit about how you started learning Chinese pronunciation and tones? Mm.
yeah, so I will just say that from 2 years ago, I started from scratch,
Mm.
completely zero beginner. It's kind of a funny story. I opened up italki one day and I found a teacher that I liked, and I showed up for the first lesson and she started speaking Chinese to me, and I was like, ni hao. Oh, I don't speak Chinese. This is my first lesson. But yeah, from that day, we focused on Pinyin and shengdiao,
Mm.
tone from the first point.
Mm.
And pretty naturally, we started to learn words and sentences. So I actually didn't start studying characters until about my fourth or fifth month of studying Chinese,
Mm.
which that's a story for another day. Kind of regret that. In the beginning, my teacher, Vicky, who has been on the channel before, still my teacher to today, she would have me be really dramatic with my tones, as dramatic as I could, and to speak slow. So
Mm.
I would just tell everybody from the start, slower is better. You don't have to worry about your speed because the better you get, the faster you will be without even trying. I also did a lot of talking to myself. I'm sure Katrina can relate, just walking around the house, repeating difficult sounds, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But
Mm.
don't be afraid to really kind of open yourself up and get a little embarrassed
Mm.
because it's the way to do it.
Yes.
And I also would record myself a lot.
Mm.
Um, I still like to record. I have my own YouTube channel, and
Here.
that's actually like the reason I'm doing that is because I like to listen to myself. It is embarrassing sometimes, but you hear you're like, "Oh, that's wrong. I know that's wrong." Or, "Oh, I
Mm.
didn't know I said that. It sounded fine in my head."
Mm.
And then there's just so many benefits of recording. And then the best part is 6 months later, 1 month later, even, you can look at that recording and be like, oh my goodness, look how much I've improved.
Yes, yes. Okay. By the way, I'll show a recording. Do you mind if I show the recording of yourself practicing Chinese 2 years ago? Okay, I'll
Yep.
show it here.
你好，我的英语名字是 Caroline。你叫什么名字？
I think eventually, I think recording is the best way because you can record your whole journey.
Right.
Yeah, and see
I
your
remember at the
improvement.
time just being like, I want to delete this. I know it's bad. I know it's like I've heard correct Chinese before.
Yeah.
My boyfriend is Chinese, so even though I didn't know Chinese at that time, I
Mm,
had heard what it should sound like, and I knew what I'm saying is not right, but I guess I had the confidence to be like, you know what? I'm going to stick with this. In 2 years or 3 years from now, this is going to be so cool. And
yeah.
man, I'm so glad I did because I found that today, and this is the first time that I've seen it since I filmed it. And I was like, wait, that's me speaking Chinese?
Wow, I'm so proud of myself,
I'm
right?
so proud of myself.
Yeah.
That is so important in this, and I won't leave the topic too much, but just you do need to be proud of yourself with whatever language you're learning. Like it's just like any major skill. It's
Mm,
you've got to give yourself some praise when you do good. So
yeah. So here comes the next question. Do you have any special tricks or tips for pronouncing the difficult initials like 知, 吃, 吃, 日, 鸡, qi, xi clearly? That's a lot of sounds.
that is a lot of sounds. So I'll do my best to kind of
Mm,
touch on the ones I at least have thought of something before.
yeah.
Um, but first, I guess I'm gonna just make a disclaimer, which
Mm,
is that when you're starting to learn, it's really okay to use your native language to come up
mm,
with connections.
yes.
Um, some people might disagree with this,
Mm,
but at least when I was starting, I needed some reference point. I
mm,
can't understand the sounds of Chinese without some connection to my own native language. So, what I've done and what I'm going to share with everybody is a couple connections that I made of, oh, this sound sounds kind of similar in
mm,
English. But, here's my big disclaimer is that they're not the same. At the end of the day, they're completely two languages that have completely different sounds. The tongue placement are not the same, but it is helpful. And if you have a starting point, the more you listen, the more you
mm,
practice, the more feedback that you
mm,
get, you will be fine. You will, over time, correct. And if you don't believe me, you
mm,
can again reference the video where my pronunciation was bad then, and now everybody's heard my Chinese now. Obviously, there has been some improvement. If Katrina would like, she can share my favorite Pinyin chart in the description box.
mm, mm,
Either of us made this. It's an excellent link, totally free. I love it. It's got all of your initials and then all of your finals paired up like an Excel spreadsheet, and
mm,
you can hit on it and you can hear every possible combination with every possible tone.
mm,
So super helpful, and you do not need to sit through and memorize all of them. But when
mm,
you come across, oh, okay, I really struggle with zhi, then you go look on zhi and you'll hear zhi, 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 and
uh-huh.
it's really helpful.
Yes.
Okay, let's get into the bulk. Okay, so the first one recently with my buddy George from the Chinese
Chinese.
Immersion Hub. George, super cool. He is a native Spanish speaker. So the pronunciation struggles that George has are different than the pronunciation struggles that I have. And that is completely understandable because he's coming at everything from a Spanish speaker mindset. So literally, our brains are different. You can't deny that. So George has a hard time with the zhi, shi, chi. That's really hard. And I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know why that happens. But recently I thought, okay, zhi, zhi, this sound it sounds a lot like jury. the English word jury. So
Mm.
that if you can make the jury. And of course, as I mentioned, they're not exactly the same. Jury and jury,
Oh, true.
not exactly the same, but we can get the tongue placement.
Yes.
And then with more listening, with more feedback, we'll
Yeah.
get it more correct to the Chinese sound.
Oh, oh, that's the same. Is that like almost the same tone placement? It's like like you have to round your
Mhm.
lips. This is how I teach my student. You need to round your lips and curl your tongue like like let the air flow smoothly. Like jury. Yeah, it's very, very close. Mm.
Is. And I think I would like to mention that there's a bunch of great YouTube videos about it. And I think some of my favorite ones are the people who use the actual mouths to
Mm.
like show you. I love
Right.
that. Sometimes it's really hard. Like we can't see inside of our own mouths. So that
Mm.
takes a lot of feel. So
Mm.
sometimes, yeah, relying on your native language. And yeah, again, I'm not sure how helpful that actually would be to George because jury, that's an English word. For me, I think they're pretty similar. So the next one is shi.
Sure.
So
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure when I first learned it, I just thought to myself, oh, it sounds pretty similar to English, sure. I'm
Oh.
sure. It's again, sure and sure, not, I'm sure,
Mm.
sure. Now I can't even tell you which one I'm saying, but they do sound pretty similar.
Mm.
But lately, I was thinking how to describe that sound. I would just say, shh. First, you need to practice like, shh, be quiet, shh, and then throw in your Beijing R in there, a little like a pirate, So then you're gonna push out, shh, and then you're gonna be a pirate, sure,
So
sure.
it's like sure,
Yeah.
sure. Oh, amazing. That's how I taught my student early years when I was teaching like zero beginners, like sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Also taught my students like you think of the word in English, sure, t-shirt.
Mm,
The very similar sh sound, sure, but yeah, like t-shirt without,
yeah.
sure. Yeah, it's very, very similar, right?
Oh, yeah, that's even a better way to explain it because everybody says shirt pretty
Yeah.
standard in English.
A lot of students, like if I only teach them the placement of tongue for 吃 they would be like, oh, do I really need to remember all the placement of my tongue and my mouth movement? And it's a lot for zero beginners. So you gotta find a similar sound for them to remember.
The interesting thing is everybody's going to have sounds that they don't have a problem with. Like
Mm,
I don't really remember ever having that much of a problem with
mm.
but I have a big problem with that sound.
Oh.
And there's other sounds I'll talk about later that I
Mm,
struggle with. But that's why, and I'm going to talk about this more later, but feedback is the most important thing for pronunciation. And
mm,
feedback could mean a couple things. The one thing could be recording. Hearing your own self is actually feedback.
mm,
But the best would be to get feedback from a native speaker. So whether that's a teacher or a language exchange friend, feedback is going to be huge. So somebody can tell you, oh, hey, these sounds, ba, 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 you really struggle with that. And then you can go and spend your time memorizing the tongue placement, the
mm.
sound of those sounds, because as you'll see in that Pinyin chart, oh goodness, there's a lot of sound combinations. And some are a lot more common than others you're going to find. Pick your battles is what all I
Mm.
have to say. The U sound are a little
Mm.
U with the umlaut. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's referred to as the V.
Mhm.
For me, I just think about it as at the beginning it was ew, like ew, this is so gross.
Ew.
Ew, ew.
Oh. uh-huh,
but you're gonna pull in your lips tighter from the top.
uh-huh.
Like, see how Katrina she's almost smiling like a joker. Like
Mm,
when you're making the sound, you're gonna end up with a little bit of a little like
mm,
weird smile. And then you're gonna say "oo,"
mm. Oh,
like "oo,
mm.
oo, oo,
Wow.
oo." So at
All
first
right.
we've got the E sound in there. That's not correct. That's English. Ew. There's no E sound there. It's a ooh, ooh. But we can be similar there. It's a reference point, and I'm not claiming that my sound there is perfect because, I'm still studying myself, but that was my reference point, and I'm, correcting it more and more and more. And at least I had something to shape my mouth to
Oh,
imagine, okay, because at first I can't hear the difference between chu and chu.
oh,
So I needed somebody to tell me the difference is like, okay, we've got ooh versus ooh,
mm,
ooh, ooh, two different sounds.
okay. So here's how I teach my students, see if that's helpful to you.
Yeah,
So
I'd love to hear
when I
that.
when I teach my student the yu sound, I say first you make the e sound like 1 2 3 e sound first. Okay, e, and then slowly round your lips like e.
Mm,
That's it. So
that's it.
inside your mouth, you don't move anything. You just e. Relax.
Ew.
Can you try?
Ew.
Relax and round. Mm. I can see your lips are still a little bit tense. You try to relax.
Back.
Ew.
Ew. Ew.
Like when you try
Ew.
to kiss somebody and you round. Yes.
These words, some of these sounds, like as a final, it can be really hard to pronunciate that on its own. And then maybe it's not as hard when you combine them with some initials. Like,
Mm.
how does that sound to you? Chu.
Oh, okay. So first you need to separate qi and yu. You have to like
Mhm.
pronounce qi first. Like you have to know how
Mhm.
to pronounce qi first, okay?
Mhm.
And qi yu chu. So your lips like chu.
Chu. Chu. Chu.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's easier when they get combined. Like, I feel I have a harder time to just pronunciate the "u" by itself, but
Mm.
maybe in another word it's okay. This is I think for at least for English native speakers, this sound might be the hardest because
Mm.
it just doesn't exist in
Mm.
English.
Yeah, like when the chi sound and your tongue is here, and then you push your air, there's more air out. Chi, 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 right? Chi.
Mhm.
And then with the yu and four tone, so chu, chu.
Chew, chew, chew.
Mm.
And this is another note to everybody, which is that you can't go crazy on one sound at a time. Like I feel
Mm.
right now I'm like, well, does it sound okay? Does it sound all right? Like when you are learning it, spend some time on each thing that you struggle with, but don't spend a half an hour on one sound. You're going to go crazy. So just a little bit every day, a little bit every session,
Mm.
um, and you'll see some improvement.
Yeah.
As you can see, I still have stuff to work on myself.
Yeah, so maybe my suggestion is as a beginner, you don't know a lot of words, you don't know a lot of sentences. So maybe you can focus on pronouncing one sound and then start with a combination, meaningful combination, like
Hmm.
去. And then you can start with a combination 出去, where you practice 出 alone and 去 alone, and then you combine them 出去 right?
Exactly. And
Mhm.
that hits something I wanted to mention, which is that like there are tons of combinations of words and um they didn't really have, I didn't think of this when I was starting off, but let's say that for you, chu is really hard to say. You could use ChatGPT and say, hey, can you give me a useful common word with the QU sound? And, everybody just practice 出去. That's the best one because that is such a common word and you will use it in your everyday conversations all the time. But I'm telling you, when I first heard it, 出去, I'm like, it's literally the same sound. What do you mean? 出去, it's the same sound. So
Oh,
I had to listen to it again and again and again
right.
before I could really produce the difference.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you're having a lot of issues with pronunciation, it might mean that you need to listen more.
Yes.
Like it's an input output kind of situation.
Only if you could listen to the difference and detail, you could pronounce better.